Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Lilian Garcia, and I'm here with you all. Very excited to be here. You are at the right place at the right time. We're at the Veterans Panel, Deported Veterans, Honor Denied. Thank you for joining us. We want to welcome everyone to San Diego City College's 6th Annual Social Justice and Education Conference, Dignity to Dream. We are grateful to continue our conference through this virtual platform and appreciate your attendance. We have a land acknowledgement. San Diego City College acknowledges that our campus is built on Kumeyaay indigenous homelands. We recognize the Kumeyaay people, past and present, and their land with honor and gratitude. We also want to inform you that this session is being recorded and archived. Later in the session, you may be asked to turn on your videos or unmute to ask any questions. In doing so, you are consenting to being recorded. Safe Spaces Statement. The Sankofa Committee, in conjunction with the San Diego City College Social Justice and Education Conference, is committed to creating a space and community that values a collective vision of justice and equality. We aim to amplify voices that have been marginalized as a means to reimagine and enact a more representative and equitable future. Our intent for this conference is to collaboratively build a safer and more inclusive space for our communities. In doing so, we must uphold certain values that leave no space for harmful and disrespectful behavior. Racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and other forms of violence do not have a place at this conference. In order for this conference to sustain its mission as an event that collectively fosters and inspires the role of social justice in our lives, we must also hold ourselves accountable if we make mistakes. The community includes all of us, and it must be sustained by all of us. You will be asked to leave and removed from this session if you do not uphold and practice these values during the session. We are very excited to have Robert Vivar, Jan Allen Ruman, Heather Boxeth, Fernando Cervantes, James L. Smith, and Kitty Harris here to share their stories and expertise today, and we'll have time for questions at the end. Please use the chat feature for questions, or we may unmute you if you would like to ask your question directly. We also want to remind you that this year's conference is highlighting the crucial work of the organization Think Dignity. Think Dignity's mission is to inspire, empower, and organize our community to advance basic dignity for those living on the streets. We encourage you to find out more and donate if you are able on their website. You can also attend the conference session tomorrow at 2:20 p.m. here and hear directly from Think Dignity's Executive Director, Michelle Woodson. And we'll be dropping this information in the chat as well as a survey that you'll be able to take. Now, while you're all here, to introduce our fabulous panelists. I'll be sharing a small bio of each panelist, and they'll be spotlighted as well. Our first panelist is Robert Vivar, co-director of Unified U.S. Deported Veterans. Robert is currently serving the welfare and interests of many veterans located south of the border that have been displaced by a country they called home. Jan Allen Ruman, President, San Diego Chapter 91 Veterans for Peace. VFP is a primary advocate for deported veterans. They present a strong lobby for rectifying an injustice to those that have served and sacrificed for their citizenship. We have Heather Boxeth, immigration attorney and advocate for the deported veteran. Heather was among the first attorneys to fight for the rights of veterans that had been deported. We have Fernando Cervantes, former deported veteran. Fernando is probably first among the few that have been able to legally return to the United States and call it home. James L. Smith II, reporter. James reported the first comprehensive video report on the deported veteran in 2012. It has been a video used to promote awareness. And now I'll introduce our moderator for this panel, Kitty Harris. Kitty is a Navy veteran, San Diego City College alumni, and founder of KLH Media Group. Kitty is also a senior ambassador for Women Veteran Social Justice Network, a member of the National Association of Black Military Women Chapter of Los Angeles, and a member of the San Diego Association of Black Journalists.
Thank you, Lillian. Once again, I want to welcome everyone to the San Diego City College Veteran Panel, Deported Veterans Honor Denied. I want to thank you also to our dynamic panel here with us. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge our San Diego City College Veteran Administration and staff. Also, the student workers, the military student workers that work at our office on campus. Our veteran community would not be able to, and active duty community would not be able to make this transition to higher education without your support, and we are extremely grateful to you. Also, I want to take the time to congratulate the class of 2021. And thank you once again for taking the time out to join us in conversation. To get a better understanding of deported veterans honor denied, we're going to watch a video called Locked Down, to Locked Out. And the video was produced by James L. Smith II.
That's just a part of the oath taken by many men and women entering gates just like these to serve their country and possibly sacrifice their lives for their fellow citizens. Or so they thought.
I believe these people that told me that I'm going to earn my citizenship by serving this country and this country's military, and it was all a lie.
This is Fernando Cervantes, a Vietnam-era vet who came to America from Mexico at the age of 7 and joined the Army at the age of 19.
I was talking to my recruiter, and he said, without me even asking him, he said, by the way, by joining the military, you automatically become an American citizen. I said, great.
But after serving his tour of duty and discharging honorably, Fernando had trouble assimilating back into his community and was subsequently arrested and convicted for a crime in 2006 that would truly turn his life inside out.
When I arrived in Tehachapi, the immigration came up and called me out and said, you got an immigration hold on you. I said, I don't understand.
So why was this happening? In 1996, immigration legislation under President Bill Clinton changed, limiting judges' discretion and expanding the scope of aggravated felonies.
But in immigration court, aggravated felonies are certain crimes that prevent people from having any sort of relief.
I don't know of any more mean-spirited law than you can have than a law that makes it retroactive. That what you did 25 years ago, you're now going to be held responsible for, not just in a court of law, but an immigration court whose hands have been tied.
Jan, Heather, and Louis Alvarez, a veteran who fought and prevented his own deportation, founded the Banished Veterans. The Banished Veterans was a group put together to support vets fighting deportation and those hoping to return.
I tell you, the only hope I see is when I look at the guys that have been deported who have gathered together, about 4 of them down in Cortina, in Rosarito Beach, who look out for one another as best as they can.
But they're not the only ones.
Veterans are all over the world. You know, I ran into veterans from Spain, Germany, Canada, Africa.
Fernando was taken to El Centro Detention Center to await deportation. With limited resources, he filed for his citizenship, but he never got the opportunity to continue the process.
They didn't want to hear it. They wanted to beat me up because I would say, we can do this the easy way or we can do it the hard way. I said, look, I'm not going to get beat up and still get thrown out of the country anyway.
Fernando spent the next year a stranger in the land he was born in.
I speak the language. I can speak, read, and write Spanish. But people can tell that I wasn't raised in Mexico because supposedly I can't tell, but they said, even my brothers say that I have an accent of somebody that wasn't raised in that country.
Thanks to the help of Banished Veterans and Latham and Watkins law firm, Fernando received post-conviction relief and the call to return home.
I was jumping for joy. I couldn't believe it. The first thing I did was tell my brother. I said, hey, man, I'm going home.
Fernando is back home in the U.S. because his conviction was overturned. A judge found that he had inadequate counsel. Therefore, no conviction, no deportation.
In the second Gulf War, USCIS started naturalizing our military members on the bases abroad.
But unfortunately, the deportable vets can only hope for a change in the law.
When Barack Obama and other politicians say that veterans have given and that there's a sacrifice they've made that we can never repay, that we'll never forget, we cannot forget. This is so wrong. It just breaks my heart.
Wow, that was a compelling piece. James, can you share how you came to being assigned to report on this dynamic story?
Sure. As a member of New Scene, which is part of the broadcast journalism department at San Diego City College, Professor Laura Castaneda had gave me a tip on the story of expatriates, people that were American citizens that had chosen to go live down in TJ, and she said there was a community. And we were doing a magazine show called Stories de la Frontera, which is basically stories of the border. So I went looking through research, and this is 2013 now. So I'm looking for this, and I come across a message board. And on the message board, there's a phrase, deported veterans. And I'm like, what is that? You know, I'd never heard of such a thing. So I started going down this rabbit hole trying to find out from it, but unfortunately there wasn't a lot of coverage that was out there for me to find. Jan, hey Fernando, Jan had, I met Jan before on campus because the Veterans for Peace have a demonstration that they do or used to do there on campus at, where they would for Veterans Day and for Memorial Day. And I met him before. So I reached out to him to ask him, what did he know anything about it? And oh my God, he just started flowing with, he was like, good, look, this is what this is about. This guy just came back, Fernando. I can bring him to you if you want. Do you want him? I'm like, yes. Okay, fine. Forget this other story. This I need to find out about because I'm a veteran. You know, I served with the Marine Corps for 6 years. And so there's a brotherhood that goes along with it. So even more to that, I'm like, how do you deport one of my brothers? So I got an opportunity, brought Fernando in and sat down with a friend of mine, Alex Miller Pastori. Alex manned the camera while I did the interview, and Jan and Fernando took us there and trying to pretty much made me feel like I was on this pathway with them. I wish you could see all the footage from the interview, but you can only do like so many minutes. Then I was to help understand it. Jan also told me to get in touch with Heather. He's like, there's this lawyer I'm gonna put you in touch with, Heather Boxes. She's gonna be able to explain to you all the ins and outs of the legal portion of this thing. And Heather was I called Heather. She was very forthcoming. You know, invited me to her office. We get over there and she laid it out for me. So it was like, I mean, especially as a student in journalism, this was like a perfect story coming together because it had a personal thing for me to be involved in, and then everybody was so ready to share and help and support. So I was able to interview her, and she broke some of the things down, and with some of my research and what Jan had given me, was able to put together this piece, and was hoping that with it, they would get the word out. And from what Jan tells me, it has. So I'm glad that it happened. I can't hear you.
So you were blessed with this wonderful opportunity to really shed light on a story that not too many people within our community hear about. And then when you hear the word deported veteran, it causes such confusion and pause, especially to those that have served. Can you share a little bit with the audience about how it impacted you or challenged you on a personal level?
Well, prior to this, I mean, it's like a brother. For me, it was almost like the relationship of other members of your family. We're part of a family, but I probably don't see you or talk to you at all, or except on holidays or for, you know, something like that. This was the first time that something called to me to help to be a part of. Since then, Jan has made it possible where I was able to go down, back down and spend the night. And there's another facility down there also called the Bunker. So I spent a night down there with a couple of deported veterans and got their stories. And it's just experience for me, the enriching to find out so much things, minor things, well, things that sound minor, but were larger, you know, the discrimination that many of them experienced. You know, I kind of thought that, okay, this is messed up that this was done to them. But I mean, they speak Spanish, they're going back to the situation. I'm sorry, that's Fernando. So is he in the room? Hold on. Fernando?
Okay, I couldn't hear you through the computer. I could only hear you through my phone. I didn't realize it was my phone that was listening.
Okay, I got to get back to, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah, I got you on my phone.
Okay, I'll just leave the phone on there.
Awesome.
All right, so I forgot where I left off at. At either rate, it pulled me into a situation to be more active in this. And like I said, by sitting down there and hearing their stories, there was more human than just humanistic than just reporting on it. And the common thread that I found were that these are Americans, regardless of what the immigration said and whatever the judges said. These are Americans that want to come home. They miss their families, they miss their rights and things. I mean, it's crazy that they don't lose their benefits, but they can't get to most of them because they're not able to get back. So the term or the idea of deported veterans, I guess you could best say affected me in the way that it showed to me that that when America says that we're of their best, we're of their most honored, that's kind of sounds like more malarkey than the way that they're celebrating. So that's about where I'm at.
Now, in the piece, Fernando shed light that there's a diverse group of deported veterans from different countries. I mean, for some people, the misconception it's just Mexico. No, that's not the case. And sometimes, you know, when we do hear stories, a lot of times the information is not conveyed and the story isn't told correctly. As a reporter, James, what was the main takeaway that you wanted to convey in your piece to your audience about these about our veterans who faced some challenges and found themselves no longer in their homeland?
Basically was to shed some light, to make it be known. You know, I'm not in some idea that I made this and then this was going to all of a sudden change some great laws, some great rules or anything like that. But when the upside of it was that Jan was able to tell me that they were able to use it as a vehicle so that when they went lobbying and went to go doing things, they could also show this, and he could show this to other people. So if I could help in that way by using the skill that I have to help them, then that was great. So we've talked about a documentary and stuff, and we're still working with that. Right, Jan? We're still working with that, right? Right.
Always.
And stuff. So yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much it. I can tell you this. They're going to really be able to tell you better the answer to that question. Okay.
Always saving those golden nuggets. Thank you, James. Mm-hmm. Jan, great to see you on the panel.
You too, Katie.
Wow, we've got history, but I think this is the first time we've actually had the opportunity to really just kind of like dive in a little bit deeply about your involvement with deported the deported veteran community. Can you share a little bit with the audience about how you got involved?
Yeah, I belong to Veterans for Peace and also Vietnam Vets Against the War, and a member of Vietnam Vets Against the War in San Diego. Was working with the military reporter for the Union Tribune, who sent him an email saying, I showed this to my editor. They don't want to cover it. You guys might want to do something about it. And it was an email from a woman up in Orange County named Robin Sword about her fiance, Rowan Combs, who was a Marine, served a couple of tours in the military, served in the Gulf War, first war, who was facing deportation and locked up in immigration jail. He did get deported ultimately. But anyways, I thought, bullshit, they don't deport veterans. And so I started working my way back to where the email began. And I realized this woman had sent that email to as many people in the press, many people in government, in Congress, in the House, in the Senate, and was reaching out trying to save this man from what she thought was an injustice. And I at first didn't believe her. And I said, can you send me some a DD-214, which is a discharge paper from the military, for those of you who don't know. And it tells what branch you served in, when you served, when you went in, when you got out, what combat you may or may not have seen, etc. And so she started sending me things one at a time because she had a scanner that scanned one doc. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Do you have a whole bunch of these? She had 7 boxes on this guy's case. So I drove up to Orange County and we Xeroxed a bunch of it. And then I got on the telephone through contacts in nationwide with Veterans Against the War and Veterans for Peace. And I found my way to an attorney who was a member of Vietnam Vets Against the War up in Berkeley, happened to be an immigration attorney. I asked him if he knew about the subject and he didn't. I asked him if he had any attorneys that he knew in the National Lawyers Guild. Not the ACLU, but the National Lawyers Guild, because they seem to be much more active in terms of they take on topics that nobody else will cover. And I had 3 of them, and 2 were men about my age, and both of them said that they would not tilt at windmills. There was nothing that could absolutely ever be done, that the law was written so that they had no recourse. So after I went through those 2, being a sexist male, I finally got around to the young woman, who is the lovely Heather Box that's here in this room with us today. That was the best thing that ever happened to the deported veterans from the United States, was because she understood the issue. She's not only an immigration attorney in San Diego, she's a criminal defense attorney. So she understands how that immigration law affected these men and women now. It's not just men being deported. But the deportation process has gone all the way back to Vietnam and all the way through into Afghanistan and Iraq, and it continues today. ICE holds those kids in lockups nationwide. Some of them are owned by private contractors, and some of them are owned by the federal government. Louis Alvarez, another veteran who helped us form with Heather Banished Veterans, a project that we started that kind of fell apart after a few years because of some internal issues with some of the vets who went across the border and started using the name of the organization, and they were not doing, it wasn't transparent. So Heather backed away from it, I backed away from it, but we never stopped working on the issue. She's been working with the ACLU. She was part of their consultants on the report Banished and Banished and Forgotten. Was that it, Heather? Banished and Discharged and Forgotten, which was about the deportation of military veterans. And they had interviewed, I think, about 30 some odd veterans. Anyways, so there was nothing, as James said, if you Googled it back in 2007, late when I first heard about it, or 2008, 9 or 10, or even up to probably 11 or 12, you might find a few things on the internet, but you're not going to find a lot. All I ever found was initially was an article from a Washington Times or Washington Post or one of those papers out of DC. And then also a personal website, a family put up a single page website on a veteran who was facing deportation back to Lebanon, I believe. At any rate, Heather and I got together and we met and we talked, and she explained the law to me and what was going on and how many facilities there were nationwide. And we had found that we had about 11 or 12 guys out in the El Centro immigration lockup that we got because of their A numbers. And we had one vet out there who just kept, every time somebody would come in, he'd ask them if they were a vet. If they were, he would give the A number, they would give it to me, and then we'd give it to Heather. We went out there and then met these guys. And one of those guys was Fernando Cervantes. And Heather's work brought him back to the United States, and her work has put forth this issue onto the map in many, many ways. So I'm grateful, and so should all deported veterans, for her help and assistance in bringing this issue forth. Nowadays, if you Google that topic, it's deep. You can go back years and years and years, hundreds and hundreds of videos, hundreds and hundreds of newspapers and documentaries and stuff. So now it's got exposure, and now it's being addressed in the Congress, just not as quickly as we would like. It's been 12 or 13 years now. Heather, when I first met her, said we should be able to get this done in a year. We were engulfed in 2 wars. We thought, how can they turn down a veterans issue like this? I don't know. I don't think I was naive, but I think she might have been a little bit. But I never have faith in my government, to be quite honest with you. They'll do something. It's not always the right thing. But at any rate, we've been working on this issue for a long time. And we figure that it's in excess of 100,000 veterans that may have been deported nationwide, all around the globe. We've met them in Jamaica. We've met them in Central American countries. We've met them in Europe. We've met them in Asia. We've met them in Lebanon. We've met them all over the place. So anyways, it's a disgrace to me. And as like James said, he served in the Marine Corps. I did too. And we were taught all the way from the time we went in, you don't leave no one behind. You know, it's a band of brothers. You take care of one another. Well, my government lied to me. They don't give a shit about veterans, especially if they're black, brown, and from some other country. But we care for each other, and so we fight the battle. Thank you.
That's my man.
Jim, we saw you in the video, and that video piece was conducted in 2013, and you touched on a little bit, but it's so big. The problem is the problems and the challenges are extreme. For you and your organization, what has been some of the most challenging between 2013 and currently?
It's getting Congress to address the issue, at least to begin to look at it and even discuss it, and even to put forth some watered down legislation that won't save most of these guys. Even legislation that's put on the books today has terms like eligible in it. And then you read on in the legislation and it says those who don't have felonies. Well, I hate to tell you, but every damn one of these guys in the eyes of the federal government, even a misdemeanor DUI in the state of California, is an aggravated felony in the eyes of the immigration law that was passed in 1996. That law, and Heather knows more about it than I do, but it was called the Illegal Immigration Reform and Responsibility Act. And that was signed by Bill Clinton, put forth by Newt Gingrich's controlled House, and the Senate controlled by the Republicans as well. It sounded like a bill that was meant to stop illegal immigration. Not that I think that anybody's illegal, to be quite honest with you, especially folks from Mexico who we stole this land from. Half of America comes from Mexico. We took it in a war. We paid them $30 million, so it looked like we bought it. But that law, it reclassified, it took away the discretion of a judge, first of all, to look at the whole impact of a person's life, what they had done. Were they in the military? Did they see combat? Have they got children, homes, businesses, that type of thing? How deep are their ties to the community? It also made crimes that were in the past considered too minor to even be mentioned as deportable, now deportable. And the third thing it did was it locked them up with no opportunity to go back to work, even if they got out on bail, and most of them don't. But if they got out on bail, then they could not even go back to work because they're not U.S. citizens, although they should have been the moment they took the oath of enlistment, at least U.S. nationals, which is a protected class that's not deportable. But they were denied everything. Our government lied to them. Recruiters lied to them. Chain of command lied to them. Told them they were citizens. I mean, I've heard this from guys that never, ever met one another. Repetitive, the theme that goes on of a government that is so insensitive and so uncaring for the men that it serves and supposedly that he sends to war. It really, truly is. It's just a shame. But enough on that.
Now, Jan, with the few veterans that have returned, do you see a pathway for the rest of the veterans in the future to come back to the U.S.?
Only if the American people are disgusted and hear this issue and pick up the phone and call their members of Congress, the House, the Senate. Only if those people write letters to the editor. Only if those people on college campuses who belong to veterans clubs stand up for these guys will, in fact, anything happen. It's been a long, long haul, and we've gotten very little accomplished in terms of bringing people home or stopping people from being deported. When Heather and I first met, we talked about this, and we both agreed that there was no way this could be fought one case at a time. There were tens of thousands of cases. It takes years and years to go through courts. We all know that. And they're not always just. I mean, it's in this case, they're not at all, but often it's just a crapshoot. You throw your dice on the table and hope you don't come up with snake eyes. And that's how these guys got into trouble to begin with, because most of them pled plea bargain. They took at the advice of an attorney, they pled to a crime that was in theory a non-deportable offense, but it really was a deportable offense because the least of the sentences was the one they would go for. And there was kind of a catch-22 there because some of the crimes that were even more egregious, if you pled to those for the same offense, if you went and pled the other one, you went to a year for jail. Now you're deportable. And then they didn't know it until they got their release from jail. And then all of a sudden they're getting out and ready to go home. And like Fernando said, they put a hold on you, an immigration hold. And the guys don't understand what's an immigration hold. They're removed from this for decades. We got a veteran right now living in Tijuana who's 75 years old. He came across the border about 4 years ago, maybe 3. Turned out very soft-spoken Vietnam veteran, small of stature. When we got his DD 214, the guy had 2 Bronze Stars, V for valor. That meant he got both of those in combat, not in the rear supporting a mission, but in combat. Where's his Purple Heart? The chaos of battle. Every bullet went around him. Thank God he's still alive. He helped a lot of people probably at the same time. Now his government trashes him and throws him out. So yeah, thank you for your service. Rings real hollow.
Well, thank you, Jan. Heather, I want to say thank you for supporting Jan and the veteran community in this crisis. As an immigration attorney, can you explain how we got here? How did we get here? How did we get here?
I think Jan pretty much summed that up pretty quickly. Unfortunately, it's our laws suck, and it's real easy to amend the US code and make all veterans US nationals. We got pushed back in DC to making them citizens. So the middle of the meeting of the ground was to amend the code to make military people nationals, and then they don't become deportable. But I think that, I mean, going into a whole racial justice issue, I'm first and foremost a criminal defense attorney, and then went into immigration, and now do all expert consulting as opposed to representing people. And the laws suck, and politics and immigration law is is a political hot potato between the two parties, especially for the Republicans. And it wasn't during the Reagan era. It was, I mean, they argued and debated on comprehensive immigration reform and reunification of families. And that's what our immigration code is based on, which is why we can have companies and families petition for their family members. So, you know, I only see it getting worse. I don't know what the Biden administration is going to do. You know, they've got this whole debacle right now of the unaccompanied minors, and we have to clean up what the Trump administration did. It's an unfortunate state of affairs.
So basically, current legislation, there is no current legislation that's in the House or bills in place to work on change.
Well, there was a bill in 2019, Jan, when we met with so it was 2019, right, Robert? But when you have a new administration come in and you have new Senate and, you know, everything started out fresh, it certainly isn't a priority right now. And I bet Robert or Jan would have more information as far as any sort of pending legislation. I have a tendency to just get it sent to me and read it, and then I chew it up and spit it out and edit it and say, no, this isn't good, and this isn't good, and this is why. We used a private bill for Fernando. It didn't go anywhere. I mean, Fernando's case was, I mean, he had lost his case and it was on appeal, and we were working on post-conviction relief, and they walked into his cell in El Centro and shackled him up and deported him like in the middle of the night, right, Fernando? Like 2 or 5 in the morning. He was out on his ass in Mexico with nothing. I mean, that's what they do. And unfortunately, prior to 1996, the federal government had, specifically Department of Homeland Security, which back then was INS, had the authority and discretion to not put veterans into removal proceedings. They have lost that discretion. Immigration, I think one of the things that's important for the college kids to understand is immigration proceedings are an administrative matter. They're not a criminal matter. It's not a civil matter. It's an administrative matter. So what happens is when they go through the criminal proceedings and they end up pleading guilty and sentenced or go to trial and lose, there are certain crimes that carry immigration consequences. And so the big thought process for us that have been working on this issue is, if you've committed the crime and you do the time, why are you then banished from the United States for the rest of your life if you served the country? And we have had a big issue on discussions of, should it cover everybody? Should it only cover honorably discharged? Should it only cover, you know, general discharge? What about those that are discharged under less than honorable conditions? And Jan and I agree on this. Not everybody agrees with us, but the philosophy of when somebody signs up voluntarily to go into the military, they take an oath of enlistment. And that oath of enlistment magically mirrors the oath of citizenship. So the only difference is that the oath of enlistment, you actually bear arms in defense of the United States of America. When you take the oath of citizenship, you state that you would be willing to bear arms in a civilian capacity. And so I think that once you've signed up and put yourself in harm's way, whether you're honorably or dishonorably discharged, that LPR or non-US citizen should have the right to be a national.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's gold. Gems right there. Thank you, Heather.
Okay, there's one other thing I want to touch on just real quickly that we wrote, like Rowan Coombs that Jan talked about in the motion. So I represented Fernando, Rowan, a number of other veterans that have all since been deported. And then Fernando's case, thank goodness, we had post-conviction relief. We even have better post-conviction relief now to help out with the cases. But one of the things that is not brought up often enough is we have a status of forces agreements And our military veterans are not subject to the International Criminal Court, the ICC. And so if the military member who wears a uniform of the United States of America ends up being a POW. Let's just take John McCain as an example. It was a POW for years. If he had not been a US citizen, the US government would have still been the one to be contacted. The US government would still be, the Department of State would still be negotiating any of those issues, even if John McCain had been born in Argentina. So they have legal protections by wearing the military uniform of the United States. And there's a US military code of conduct that they're subject to, just like anybody that's a US citizen. It doesn't change just because they happen to have been born in a different country. They're still held to the same standards.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather, for shedding light on that. A lot of, this is why we're having this conversation, is because there's so much more that we need to learn, and in regards to the laws and the conditions and how this happens to our veterans. And so thank you. Thank you so much, Heather. Fernando, before we go to Fernando, I just want to share, we're going to segue into hearing about the real life stories regarding two of our veteran brothers. And so I'm going to start with Fernando. Fernando, are you there?
Yes, he's here. You gotta turn on his mic, or he's got to turn on his mic.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Thank you for being on the call, Fernando. In the video, the story that James reported on, just a little bit about, you shared how the officers took you in the middle of the night, and even Heather shared a little bit about it. Took you in the middle of the night and dropped you off in TJ.
The phone went off, and I don't know
I'm
what.
sorry?
Can you hear me?
There you go. Okay. I hear you. No, I hear you. Go ahead.
Can you please share with the audience what was going through your mind at that time, and what were the next steps for you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Can you say that question again?
Can you share with the audience when the officers took you?
I'm trying to find the.
Can you hear us, Fernando? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I can hear. I had the ear.
Yeah. Yes.
That's why I couldn't hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay. I just want to go back to when this all started for you, and can you share with the audience when the officers released you in the middle of the night? TJ, what was going on through in your mind at that time that you were being removed and taken to somewhere that you had no connection to, even though you served your country? Can you share with us what was going on in your mind at that time, and how did you begin the process of even considering getting your citizenship or fighting for your citizenship?
I don't even know where to start, because first of all,
I was very, very hurt, and I was very, very angry at the same time, because the fact that I had served this country, and this country has just kicked me out like I was a no pair of shoes, with no force, nothing, no forethought or anything. And I was I didn't know what I was going to do. I mean, Mexico is a country I've been as far as Tijuana. That's it, and that was only back in the early '70s. So you can imagine. They just left me there at the border, say, didn't even say goodbye. They just threw me out. Just get out of the van, okay. But before they did that, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to, I mean, my family was in El Paso, my mom and my brothers and sisters. My daughter was in Oxnard, but what could they do? My thing was that I couldn't. It just my mind was so blown. I mean, I couldn't even understand. When they first came up to me and said that I was being deported, and I don't even know the name of this place over there. You have to excuse me. I had a real bad car accident on the 21st of December, 2018. So my head's kind of like travels somewhere sometimes. So I didn't know what I was going to do, or what was going to be, what to expect. You got to remember, I haven't been to this place since I was a little kid.
How were you
treated,
Fernando?
Pardon me?
Fernando, how are you treated down there? Most people think, especially, I'm gonna say gringos, non-Hispanic speaking people or Americans feel like, well, because you could speak Spanish and that you have a Spanish heritage, that assimilation would be easy. What was it like?
No, not at all. Because I didn't, my brothers would tell me that I have an accent. I don't when I speak Spanish. Well, to me, I don't. But they said that yes, I have an accent. So they knew that I wasn't raised in Mexico. So they look at you like I didn't tell anybody I was a veteran, because the first thing they do, they call you a traitor. They consider you a traitor to the country because you went and served in another country instead of the one you were born in. So I mean, they looked at me like, who's this guy? Like I was an alien there, and I was an alien here. So I have no because I spoke Spanish didn't mean that they were going to welcome me with open arms. That wasn't even close to the truth. Like I said, because of my accent, my brother said that I had an accent, so they knew that I wasn't raised there.
Was it hard to?
Right, and thank you for sharing that, Fernando. Because a lot of times when people, hear, well, they were deported back to where they came from, and for a lot of deported veterans, that's not where they're sent back to. They have no connection. So not only were you removed from the home that you knew, you had to try to invent a way to try to sustain yourself. And then this experience, dealing with this experience, how did you learn about others in your situation? How did you learn about getting the necessary help to start working to get your citizenship?
Well, what happened was that I was in El Centro just before I got deported. There was a law firm that was trying to get me bail. But by the time they got to me at El Centro, I was already in Mexico. So they started proceedings. They kept fighting my case. I was in Mexico. I kept in touch with my attorney at the time through emails. I would contact her once a week at a certain day at a certain time, and go back and forth, and or she would send me letters about things that I had to sign or whatever, you know. So to tell you the reality was that I didn't expect to see the United States again. I thought these people just threw me out like, you know, and nobody cares. Especially when I got back and I heard some of the people that were putting comments that that we got what we deserved, and I posted back and said, you know, you have to remember that some of us might have been fighting next to your kin and saved their lives so that they can come back home to you, you know. So how can you stand there and tell me that I got what I deserved when you don't know what happened during my time in service? You know, I have letters of accommodation letters from some of the battalion commanders and stuff like that, or you know, but these people, they just I don't know, that's when I felt that they didn't care. They didn't care what happened to the veterans that were. I mean, like I told you, the first reporter I talked to, I said, you know what? They can take away anything they want, anything they can take away from me, but one thing they can never take away is the fact that I'm a United States veteran. And I will always be a United States veteran. They can't take that away from me. So how can they just toss me out without even, and then at the same time say, you know, oh, we do this for the veterans. We do this for, and let me tell you, my anger has no boundaries over this stuff, you know, because I feel so disrespected to begin with. I mean, I admit the fact that I did commit, you know, the infractions that I did, but I paid my debt to society. It wasn't a give me. It wasn't a freebie. I did the time like anybody else. You know?
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
And for them to think that someone would say that just because we were U.S. vets that we expected special treatment. No, what we expected was fairness. That's what we expected. Fairness like everybody else, especially because we served the country and the people of the United States and the Constitution, and that meant nothing to them.
And that's why it's so.
Pardon me?
And now I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's why it's so important that I'm grateful that Jan and Heather have been instrumental in assisting you in your process.
They were the first people that ever showed me that somebody cared. You know, I thought, well, you know what? Maybe there is hope. You know.
Absolutely. And Fernando, can you share with us the other side to your story? Between the time you were notified and it became real to you that you were finally coming home.
Oh.
What did that feel like?
I can tell you when I got the well, I spoke to my lawyer and she said, "Are you ready to come home?" I said, "You're kidding me." She said, "No, yeah, your case got vacated in Superior Court." You know, because I kept telling him, I said, you know, had I known that I was not a U.S. citizen, I would never plead guilty to anything like that. If I'd known that I ran the risk of getting deported, you know, I would have tried to find something else. And I said that when I was in doing my time and when in the military, I went to my company commander and said, "Sir, where can I get the paperwork to, you know?" Because I remember my mother. I never had anything to do with it, so I didn't, you know, I didn't know what it was. So I asked him. I said, "The paperwork to you know, non-citizens are supposed to file this thing every year. I know my mom did it, so I don't know what to do." She said, "No one's filed." I said, "I've never heard of it. As far as I know, you guys are U.S. citizens." And so we went to the battalion commander. And the battalion commander said the same thing. He said, "I've never even heard of such a thing. As far as I know, you guys are citizens." So I believe that. I came home And since I never went across that border, I never knew that I was not a citizen.
So Fernando, how long were you in exile there in Mexico?
I was there for a year, almost to the day. I was deported on the, believe it or not, I was deported on the Mexican Independence Day. talk about it. Let me tell you, I said, what? Where's all the parties at? Now, I mean, I was scared because I didn't know what was going to happen over there. No. I went into a hotel room right away and hid there. I wouldn't come out for anything. If anything, I would walk out to go get a pack of cigarettes. That was it.
How did you survive that whole time period?
Money that I would get from my family, you know, wasn't much, but it was enough to, you know, to eat and pay for the motel room.
Any jobs?
Pardon me?
Any jobs?
There was no jobs. No, I mean, like I said, people that hear me talk and they wouldn't even think about it twice, you know. They like I said, I don't know if I didn't feel like I fitted in there. At least it didn't make me feel like it, and I didn't feel like I fitted over here because of what happened to me. And what they did in Mexico, the way they treated me and all that didn't hurt me as much, hardly at all, as much as what happened to me here. Because when I grew up believing that this country was worth fighting for and offering my life to it. And I did.
I never asked you, Fernando, but I've sat in immigration courts and I've heard immigration judges gavel down on veterans who are facing deportation and tell them they're deportable. And at the same breath saying, thank you for your service. Did they say that to you?
Yes. And well, see, the judge that I had, I mean, he was hard, but he said that he did say one thing one time. He said, I wish I could help you, but my hands are tied. They tied our hands to where we can't do anything. Once you come in here, there's not even the way to even fight it, because you're not, you know, it's just going to be, you're going to get deported no matter what. I mean, I fought my case for a year and a half. I spent a year and a half fighting my case in Central.
It's important to realize that Heather fought that case through immigration court knowing she was going to lose it. And at the same time, she then found an attorney who was of Vietnamese ancestry from the Latham and Watkins law firm to take Fernando's appeal. And she was a Vietnamese refugee, her family, so she was thrilled to be representing somebody
that people have to thank
during the Vietnam time.
They helped me out.
So
somebody that
Heather is Fernando's life and freedom is actually those two attorneys saved his butt, because you've got some real health issues that if you had in Mexico today, you probably wouldn't be here. Am I correct?
Yeah. I just went through it's going to be a year in April. I had liver cancer. And they did surgery on me. They cut me from here to here and then took a right this way. So you can imagine. And, you know, if I wouldn't have been here, I would have been dead a long time ago.
Yeah.
One of the things, I'm just going to jump back
out. Let me just say this real quick, Heather, and I'll back out. My apology. Nope, I forget. Old mind, give it out. Take it away, young lady.
I was just going to say, when James and Kitty and I spoke last week, one of the things that has changed for the better is this idea of post-conviction relief. So, for example, Fernando's conviction was a drug trafficking conviction. And there are ways now that we can craft language and plead up to a more serious crime, craft the language so that it wouldn't be an aggravated felony for immigration purposes. Yeah. So the process happened with Fernando, with the attorney from Latham and Watkins. We did what was called a writ of habeas corpus because he was in constructive custody. And that's what allowed us to get in front of, or allowed them to get in front of the judge in San Bernardino criminal court. And so that's, you'll often, most of the cases that we've seen with veterans have been more or less drug related, which comes back to what happens in service, whether it's through boot camp or whether it's in, a theater where there's active war and strife going on. What's happened now since 2017 in California, we've got a great statute that allows us to go back into criminal court and file a motion to vacate that plea or that conviction of the jury trial based on not knowingly, intelligently, voluntarily understanding the immigration consequences of the plea at the time. We also, so that it would have, like for Rowan, we couldn't get, Rowan Coon was a Jamaican that was out of Orange County. We couldn't get into criminal court for him to vacate his conviction. And his case went up to the Ninth Circuit. But now we've got this great statute, and we also have military diversion, and our military diversion has become much stronger over the years, where if you are active military or you served in the military and you're facing criminal charges, you have to meet certain requirements to get into military diversion. But then if you successfully complete it, you don't end up having a conviction. So we're looking at, this is like a threefold issue. One, of making veterans nationals. Two, of being able to get them naturalized. And it's like Jan said, it's, and then cleaning up old convictions so that they can come back. Because once the conviction's cleaned up, you're not deportable anymore. Then you have to file a motion in immigration court to reopen those proceedings, terminate those proceedings. They get their lawful permanent residency status back, and then they can apply to become a citizen. Where if we could just amend the code and make it retroactive, we'd be out of this problem, which is why that was the hopeful part of me. It's like, oh, it's easy to get a bill passed.
Wow. And then again, this is wonderful dialogue and conversation, because again, Heather, sharing this information, opens the door for so many other cases that are pending. I want to go ahead and move on with our next veteran. Robert, are you there?
Yes, thank you. I am here, and
welcome. Thank you for being on the panel once again.
If I may just start off with something real brief. I'm not a veteran. I want to make that real clear. The reason I'm involved with veterans is because I'm a Blue Star father. My son is currently serving in the California Air National Guard. He done something like 8 years regular Air Force. Is now has 12 years Air National Guard under his belt. Grandson is also serving active duty, Marine Corps. Older brother is a Vietnam combat veteran. My partner's son is a two-tour Iraqi combat veteran. So even though I'm not a veteran, I'm part of a military family, and as military families and veterans know, we take care of each other and we look after each other.
Thank you for that. Now share with us how you got involved.
The way I got involved with veterans issues was after I got deported. Matter of fact, this Friday will be exactly 8 years. About 6 months after I got deported, I started going through a little bit of a difficult time adjusting to deportation. I had lived in the U.S. since the age of 6 as a legal permanent resident. And walking out of church one day, I ran into a sign that said deported veterans. And I walked in and I met a gentleman that had just moved to Tijuana and opened up a office for deported veterans. And I started volunteering there with him. Eventually, that became the Deported Veterans Support House, which is known as the Bunker. And from there, I started getting involved with the deported community, mothers of deported children, deported families and so forth. And I found out that the more I got involved in this segment of the population, the easier it was for me to continue my struggle to one day be able to go home as well. I was there at the Deported Veterans Support House as co-director, co-founder for a couple, 3 years until, and eventually through that association, I ended up meeting Jan Ruman and several of the Veterans for Peace members, became a part of the Deported Veteran Advocacy Project. And about 4 years ago, I left from there. Jan in the Deported Veteran Advocacy Group people were opening up an office here at the border where I'm sitting at right now. And they asked me to come on board with them and help them with this new office that was right at the border. And the reason for that was that they for many years have always wanted an office right at the border to intercept veterans that were being deported and help them assimilate into their native land. Because of course, you know, when you get deported with practically only the shirt off your back. You don't know anybody most of the time because you left at a very young age. You don't have any money with you. You're like a fish, you know, out of water. And if you don't have a support system that you can revert back to, you know, what happens is what has happened to many of our deported veterans prior to the establishment of the office. They end up, you know, because of the trauma from the service, the trauma from being deported, end up resorting to self-medicating, drugs, alcohol, homelessness. And to be able to bring them back from there is quite a challenge. Whereas to veterans that we have come in contact since the opening of the office, that were deported since there, have had a better opportunity, still a big challenge, but have had a better opportunity into integrating back into the community as productive members and continue to fight to be able to one day return legally back to the United States. Your mic.
Can you share with us some of the services and resources that are provided to those veterans?
Absolutely.
That are instrumental with them in their journey?
Absolutely. What we do immediately is assess their needs. We don't have a shelter, but we have very good contact with different shelters that we can refer them to for housing. Also with their opportunities for employment, assist them with obtaining all their documentation. Again, when you get deported, you don't have your Mexican birth certificate, voter registration, you have no documents. So we assist them with that. But we also, very important, is assist them in analyzing and also processing their veteran benefits or VA benefits. We have an accredited agent that we work with out of San Diego, Dr. Rudy Melson, who has been very helpful in assisting us in presenting and prosecuting claims for deported veterans, where we have several veterans that have and are receiving their VA benefits. And not only just, you know, regular pension, but also pension and compensation benefits, as well as winning appeals. Some very, very strong appeals that he has won in order for our veterans to at least have an opportunity of a quality life while they are here in Mexico. The other thing that we do is that we work with the California Department of Veteran Affairs, CalVEX, through Public Counsel, who has a project of assisting veterans with possible post-conviction relief, citizenship, in order to, again, analyze their particular situation for any relief available to be able to repatriate them. We also work with several of the law schools at different universities across the country. And we also advocate for changes in immigration law. A couple of things that I was very happy to hear from from Heather regarding the amendment, which she was talking about. It was amending 8 U.S.C. Code 1101 Alpha 22, which talks about what constitutes loyalty and allegiance of a person to be considered a national if not a citizen of the United States. Well, as she mentioned, when the person took the oath of enlistment, which is very similar to the oath of citizenship, at that point, we believe that that soldier proved their loyalty and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and should be considered a national, if not a citizen of the United States. And we believe it should be retroactive to the day that they finish their basic training. And the reason that we believe that is because in a recent case that the ACLU won in SAMA versus the Department of Defense, which reverted several of Trump's ill policies affecting our military, it talks about renewing a policy that the Department of Defense once had with USCIS to permit those non-citizens serving to be able to initiate their citizenship process from the moment they begin basic training, so that they would have an opportunity to finalize their citizenship process at the end of basic training. So they would graduate basic training and have an opportunity to become a citizen at the termination of their basic training. So, you know, there's already a lot of historical work on it. This is not something new. This is something that has been in the books, you know, ever since, you know, First World War, Second World War, Vietnam War, Iraq War. Congress has always thought and considered those serving during war or combat times an expedited pathway to citizenship. So there is no reason why this cannot be a simple fix of amending this 8 U.S.C. Code 1101 Alpha 22 and clearly stating that when that soldier took the oath of enlistment, they immediately became a national, if not a citizen. And to those that have been deported, make it retroactive to the day they finish their basic training and bring them back home.
That's an excellent point, Robert. Thank you. Thank you. Before I open up the floor to our attendees for questions, does anyone have anything else that they'd like to share just briefly on the panel?
If I could just mention something else really briefly. We have always taken up the fight of one way or another bringing the amendment to 8 U.S.C. Code 1101 Alpha 22 center stage. And we have always been looking for opportunities to do that. And recently this opportunity has been presented through what is on my back, which is a mural project that we have initiated here 2 months ago with my colleagues, Liz Santana from UC Davis and Jenny Martinez from Oregon State University. The reason for this mural is to call attention to the public of the United States, to the citizens of the United States, to send a clear message to President Biden that his immigration plan is omitting his promise to bring deported veterans home and reunite families that have been separated. And part of the mural is to bring that attention to President Biden. And in the way we're asking for his attention is to sign an executive order to immediately bring our deported veterans home. However, since an executive order is only a Band-Aid, we are also asking for support of HR 536, introduced by Congressman Chuy Garcia, which is a reform bill that reforms the prison to deportation pipeline. This bill, if enacted, would bring a lot of our deported veterans home immediately. However, during a press conference that we held, which Congressman Garcia was present, we also asked him to please consider introducing or including in his bill amending 8 USC Code 1101 Alpha 22, which he was very receptive in hearing our concern of including this amendment. And that is part of the narrative that we are bringing forth on every mural installation, that we ask that President Biden sign an executive order, that we ask Congress to support HR 536 to include amending 8 USC Code 1101 Alpha 22. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open up the floor now for questions from our attendees. Lillian, whenever you're ready.
Robert, while they're doing that, what cities, where are these murals going to be at?
Well, we the very first one was installed here in Tijuana. On March 19, we installed 2 of them in Bakersfield. This Sunday, we will be installing 2 more in Fresno. We've got pending installs in Phoenix, Arizona, El Paso, Texas, Laredo, Texas. We have had a request for St. Louis, Missouri, Chicago, Illinois, New York, Seattle, Portland, and the culminating of the murals, and we'll continue to install after this particular day. We're planning on installing a mural in Washington, D.C. On the week of April 19th to the 22nd. And the reason for that is that we want to make sure that noise is created before Biden's 100-day immigration plan is supposed to be fulfilled. We want to make sure that we make as much noise possible before that 100 days. So we're going to do an install on that week there in Washington, D.C., with our brothers and sisters from Deported Veterans Advocacy Project, Veterans for Peace, Immigration Justice Network, who is the coalition behind the New Way Forward Act, and other organizations that want to participate. And by the way, if anybody has a wall in San Diego that they would like to install a mural, we would love to do it. We have the one that's right behind me, which is a mixture of deported veterans, deported legal permanent residents, deported mothers with U.S. citizen children. The second mural is all deported veteran mural.
Right on, right on, right on.
Thank you. So if you all have any questions, you can either raise your hand and we'll unmute you, or you can type them in the chat and we'll read them out loud.
Your microphone, Heather.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, for the college students, if you guys come across any sort of cases, information like this, the ACLU of Southern California and the ACLU of San Diego and Imperial counties handle cases like this. The San Diego Public Defender's Office, which I'm retained as an expert for, we do post-conviction relief on veterans cases. I'm working on a couple of veterans cases right now through the Public Defender's Office in conjunction with the ACLU. So there's lots of, and if anybody's interested clearly like going to law school or learning any of this, you can also reach out to me personally if you have more, if you have some interest in that. But there's definitely a call to action in knowing where the resources are and who to contact.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you for offering to support any students interested in furthering this as a career.
Absolutely.
One comment. A student had a class and they had to go, but they wanted to make sure to thank everyone so much. I'm a former veteran and I had no idea about any of this. I'll definitely be doing more research. Thank you. Also wanted to thank everyone on the panel for the work they are doing for this issue. So that's a student. And then I think there is another question. How many women are affected by this?
As far as we know at this time, there is only one female that was deported to Costa Rica. We have heard that there were a couple others, but those were not confirmed. There is one confirmed.
And another way to answer that also is the government, the federal government does not track veterans going into removal proceedings. The prisons, the federal prisons and the state prisons and the state jails do not track veterans that are in criminal proceedings and in custody, then are being turned over to ICE, and ICE doesn't track them. So that's why we always say there's estimates, but I can guarantee you that there's more than one woman that's been deported. We just don't, I mean, if they're not keeping the veteran numbers generally, they're certainly not tracking gender numbers. But we also know from a racial justice, that we have a new racial justice act that just passed in California we know that Black and brown people are prosecuted more severely, do more time in custody for similar crimes as a white person. And so they're going to be, and then you've got a veteran on top of it, you're going to have many more minorities, both men and women, that are facing this than a white military veteran. It's just how unfortunate our criminal justice system is.
I think it's also important for the students to know that veterans has always run afoul of the law, especially after coming home from war. Barroom fights, brandishing weapons, driving drunk. We have veterans we lose all the time around Camp Pendleton riding motorcycles at 100 and some odd miles an hour. Most of them guys that just came back from overseas. But it's not unique to foreign nationals who come to our country legally and are called legal permanent residents. It's not unique to them. They just happen to fall through the cracks because of the way that mean-spirited law was written. And it was meant to catch up people like this. People come from immigrant communities, don't have the resources. They don't have the knowledge of the law. In fact, if you listen to these guys, and most of them I've talked to, they had no idea they weren't citizens after they served in the military. That's how naive they are and believe in our government. I haven't believed in my government since I got back from Vietnam, and that was 1968. So
something
the other
very
thing is that we have a chapter of Veterans for Peace in Tijuana, and it's called the Sergeant Barrios Memorial Chapter. And he was the first veteran from Vietnam that died in Mexico that we know of. There's been 14 or 18 of them in the last few years that have passed away. So they're dying off, and they can be buried in a military cemetery if we can get their bodies back home, or their ashes, and their parents want them to be buried in a veteran cemetery. We'll give them a full gun, we'll do it all. 21 gun salute, 6 guys in dress blues or army greens carrying the casket. And that's the other thing I think you guys should realize. These guys are 95% combat veterans. They are either in the combat arms of the Marine Corps or the Army. 82nd Airborne, 101st Airborne. Oh, predominantly it's those guys. Very few from the Navy and very, very few from the Air Force.
Yeah.
So you think maybe their military service might have had something to do with them ending up running afoul of the law? I sure do. And I think it's a national disgrace that we recruit these kids in the front door with great fanfare. And then we unceremoniously, quietly throw them out like trash out the back door.
Something
That's
very
got to stop. That's got to stop.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead, Robert.
Something very important that Jan said, naive. Most of these veterans that have been deported entered the military at a very young age, 17 years old, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
Very naive kids, more or less the age of many of the students here at San Diego City College. good, wholesome American kids, very naive. And what is it that they are taught for the next 8 to 10 weeks? They're taught how to be violent, how to be aggressive, how to kill. And they are sent to another country, and many of them have to kill. Many kill. Many see their friends or buddies that they were in basic training through killed. And when they come back from from combat, when they come back from military service, they are expected to put all this aggravation, this violence, this aggressiveness, all this, thing that have been, embedded in them, put it away and come back and expect to enter civilian life again as that naive kid that left. And that's where a lot of the problems occur. Not only deported veterans, any veteran, they start having trouble integrating back into the community, into civilian life. And what do? They resort to the best way they can to alleviate the pain, self-medicating, which ends up getting them into trouble. If you're a non-citizen, or pardon me, if you're a citizen, you pay, you do your time, you go home, you have a second chance. If you're not, now all of a sudden you get faced with immigration detention. They revoke your legal permanent residence. That's being charged twice for the same crime. As if it was not enough, then you get punished 3 times. You get exiled to a country you were born in that you hardly ever remember, torn away from your family, from your life. Even the worst criminal in history has an opportunity of family visits in prison. Deported veteran, you're exiled. You pay not once, you pay not twice, you pay 3 times for the same estate that your citizen brother only paid once.
Yes, we have a raised hand by Michelle. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I just want to say thank you for your service, anybody who actually serve in the military. My question is pretty much is how can us civilians help, or because usually we do not know exactly what's going on. I don't have, my family is not a military family, but we had suffered from family members being deported. But how can we help? How can our voices be heard to help our veterans that are suffering from this issue?
Robert?
Heather, Robert, why don't you tell him, Heather, and then Robert?
Sure.
So I think one is just to become familiar with the issues. I posted in the chat 2 really good further reading materials. If I was to only pick one, I would read the ACLU report, because they talked with me, they talked with Craig Shagan, they talked with Margaret Stock, and they cover a lot of those issues. I think volunteering with the ACLU is a good idea. I think pursuing, criminal justice or law school or teaching are all great avenues. I don't know what they're, as far as Robert can speak to this better, is any sort of donations or people that can cross the border and doing phone banking and different things like that. I know that they've had interns down at the house there, but Robert can talk more about that. And I have to jump off. I apologize. I have a 3:30 call that I'm way late for with all the Padilla experts in the state. So I thank all of you guys, and Kitty has my contact information if anybody wants to reach out to me later.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather, so much for being on the panel. Thank you. Thank you. So did anyone else want to add in support of Michelle's question before we close out?
Sure, Kitty, thank you. My suggestion, number one, like Heather said, maybe, familiarize yourself a little bit more on the issue, but also very important, rally around your classmates, your friends, your family. Pick up that phone. You call your congressperson. Better yet, send them an email. If you send them an email, they've got to respond to you. The only way that we're going to make Congress do something about this issue is if we pressure them. If we have everybody in the San Diego area emailing Congressman Vargas, Scott Peters, Daryl Issa, well, what can we say? But, of all the congressmen, if we have everybody pressuring them, they have to do something about it. You put them in office, you can take them out of office. And if there is enough people emailing them and calling them, they have to listen to you. That's why we are carrying this mural project across the country and asking people to do exactly that.
Thank you.
And also don't forget about our newly appointed Miss Sarah Jacobs.
By the way, Sarah has been down here a couple of times to visit us prior to her being elected. As a matter of fact, we done phone banking for Sarah here out of this office. And we also held a rally at the border, which is the world's most transited border, in support of Sarah.
If anybody wants to make a donation, Veterans for Peace is the fiscal sponsor of the Deported Veterans Advocacy Project and covers overhead and expenses and raise funds for the operation of the office where Robert and others work in Tijuana. So you can go to veteransforpeace.org, lowercase, running all together, and then click on the Deported Veterans Advocacy Project if you wish to donate, or if you just wish to learn more. Or you can call me, 858-361-6273. For anything you need, if you want to help us, if you've got time to come across the border and be a student intern at the office, helping with data entry or filing or legal work or stuff, that's great. Again, 858-361-6273. And I'll answer that call and I'll be happy to help you folks understand more. But without that, if you don't have time to do that, just Google the topic, deported veterans, military deported veterans. You'll see it's horrible. You'll see it's horrible. It's horrible.
And then we have one last question, and I'll read it out loud. Did I hear correctly that even if they are deported, veterans have access to veteran services? Do deported veterans have the ability to access the Veterans Hospital or mental health services? Do they even have the ability to cross the border to get to appointments?
No,
Absolutely
they don't.
Not. They don't. The only thing that they're entitled to is their age pension or pension and compensation benefits for service-connected disabilities, injuries. They're not permitted to go across to the VA hospital.
Actually, there have been a few that have been allowed to come across on what they call a humanitarian parole, but those that have been gotten across were dying. And two that I can think of immediately was Jose Segovia, who died in the VA hospital in La Jolla, in California, here in San Diego.
Jose's deported to El Salvador.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was Enrique Salas that we were able to.
He died on this side of the border as well. And so there was several people that died on the way to the hospital, but very few of those people ever get come across. And they got to be knocking on heaven's door. So other than that, their bodies can be brought back, but they're not coming across to get the health care they paid their dues for.
Well, thank you everyone for joining this conversation with us. This has been a year in the making. I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists. I just want to say thank you, Jan Roman, Robert Vier, Heather Boxon, who had to leave, and Fernando Cervantes, and James L. Smith II. Ashley and Lillian, thank you for helping us orchestrate and keeping everything in line with our virtual panel discussion. Again, I want to thank our attendees. And again, thank you a special thank you once again to the San Diego City College of Veterans Administration and staff that have supported veterans past, present, and our future student body. We couldn't do this, make this transition without you. And so please share with your families and loved ones that the 6th annual Social Justice Conference continues. We have another day of wonderful panel discussions. We want you to share it on your social media platforms. And we just want to say thank you for attending. And again, everyone, it's been a wonderful opportunity to have this dialogue with our veteran panel. And in the meantime, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you, James, for organizing
Thank
this.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
And I'll just say real quick, if you have the chance, just take a few minutes to fill out this conference survey. It'll be in the chat. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you for shedding light on such an important issue and for empowering us with your knowledge and sharing your stories.
Can I say one more thing before everybody leaves?
Yes.
The reason the American people don't know about this issue with the veterans is because they put a muzzle on them. The reporter that saw me the very first time in El Centro, he got fired from his job for doing what he did, for doing that report about the deported veterans. And if you ever notice, I mean, they'll take a story on the news and drive it into the ground, but yet when it comes to deported veterans, 15 seconds, it's done. And you only hear it once in a great while, and the American people don't even know that this is going on.
Tell everybody.
Great.
Thank you so much for that, Fernando. And with that said, have a great evening, everyone.
Do the same. Be safe, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
I'll holler at you, brothers.
All right. Take care.
I clicked out before I could get to the survey. How do I get back to the survey?
I'll add it right now in the chat. Thank you. I just added it. Do you see it?
Yeah, I'm in it right now.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, of course.
Is this for students? Because I've already been a student and everything, so.
Oh, it's for everyone. It's because it's open to the community. But you're a panelist, so it's up to you.
Go ahead.
I see the raised hand.
Oh, wow, there was a Reclaiming Our Stories. Oh. So I shouldn't be doing this till tomorrow.